The room was electric with tension. Smoke curled toward the ceiling, and the roar of the crowd pressed in like a storm, ready to break. Under the flickering fluorescent lights, two men stood toe to toe. One, a local challenger, desperate to prove his strength, and the other, a towering force of muscle, gold chains, standing unmoving like a mountain before the wind. The first fist flew. He barely blinked. Another swing, this time wilder. He dodged effortlessly. The challenger was now breathing hard, the weight of the fight catching up to him. Then, with one final surge of power, he sent the man sprawling. The fight was over. The crowd erupted. But this wasn't about victory. It was about dominance. He had fought for a purpose. Every dollar from these fights went to the youth in his community, kids who had nothing. He didn't fight for himself. He fought so that they had a future. A reporter shoved a microphone in his face. "What do you have to say to all those who think they can take you down?" He looked straight in the camera, and in his deep, gravelly voice, he said, "I feel really sorry for him, man." The crowd roared, laughter, cheers, and excitement. Somewhere in a Hollywood office, a producer leaned forward in his chair. He had just found his next star. Before the gold chains, before the crazy hair, before Hollywood, he was just a kid from one of the roughest streets of Chicago. The youngest of 12, he was raised by a single mother. He learned early that the world did not hand out kindness freely. If you wanted to survive, you had to be strong. Discipline became his shield. Hard work became his weapon. He carried that mindset into every job he took. As a bouncer, he was legendary. No one got past him. As a bodyguard, he protected some of the biggest names in the world: Muhammad Ali, Michael Jackson, and Diana Ross. He never sought fame. He sought excellence. And because of that, when opportunity knocked, he was already the kind of man who couldn't be ignored. The interview where he uttered his now iconic phrase, where he felt pity for all the fools who would get into the ring with him. It was supposed to be just another night, just another fight, another movement of giving back. But God had other plans. That unscripted line, spoken from the heart, in the moment lit the match. Hollywood took notice. Suddenly, his strength, his presence, his unshakable confidence were exactly what the producers were looking for. And then came the call. A movie role, not just any role, but a rival to Rocky Balboa himself, Clubber Lang. Fame came fast, but it never changed him. He wasn't just playing the tough guy, he was one. But beneath the chains and the bravado was a man who never forgot where he came from. He turned his fame into a platform for good. He spoke to kids about respect, discipline, and faith. He refused roles that compromised his values. He kept his mission clear: to inspire, to uplift, and to stand for what is right. The fighter who battled in the underground clubs for the sake of his community. The man who protected legends before becoming one himself. The voice behind one of the most iconic phrases in history: "I pity the fool." That man is Mr. T, a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of discipline and faith, a reminder that you don't have to chase success. You just have to become the person who is ready when it arrives. The inspirational lesson here is to just be the right person. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for a sign. Instead, focus on being the right person, and then God will arrange the time and place. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sergeant Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess.
Welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
All right, Jess, there's been so much going on in the first month and a half of the year. There's so many things we can talk about, but I want to talk about something super fun that happened this weekend. Well, I think it was fun. The Canadians, probably not so much.
Yes.
Are you a hockey fan?
I'm not. You would not consider me a hockey fan.
I love hockey. I've only gotten into it like the last 5 or 6 years. I have season tickets to the T-Birds. I'm there all the time. There's tons of photos of me hanging out with Coolbird. I love it. It gets rowdy. It's fantastic. A kid lost a tooth this last time. We were playing Portland, and the kid lost his tooth. They were looking for it on the ice. That's
Nice.
how awesome this game is.
Sounds fun.
Super fun. Super fun. So I want to kind of back up, and people are getting into this craziness of getting sucked into the media. And I see that happening in Canada right now, where they're freaking out saying, oh, the Americans are going to invade and all of this craziness, which is just total nonsense. But what happened is during the All-Star game for the NHL, National Hockey League, it was America playing Canada. And they booed our national anthem. Like, this is in the middle of this huge game, and they're getting ready to start. They play the national anthem, and the Canadians start booing the Americans.
Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
And that didn't work out real well for them.
That's what I heard.
In the first 9 seconds of the game, the Americans beat the snot out of the Canadians, like fist fights. And that happens all the time in hockey. But in the first 9 seconds, for 3 fights to break out where the Canadians just got pummeled, like they got worked over.
9 seconds or 9 minutes?
9 seconds.
Oh my
In the
gosh.
first 9 seconds, 3 fights broke out. And the Canadians got worked over. And it gets better. And then the Americans went on to score 3 unanswered goals.
What is an unanswered goal?
It means that we scored 3 points and they scored 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And in hockey, like to score 3 points, that's a lot. Usually hockey games are like 1 or 2.
It's like soccer.
It's like 1v2 is how you're going to end the game, right?
Yeah.
Or 3, to 4. So the fact that we had 3 unanswered goals, it just goes to show. Listen, Canada, if you're listening, America, we're kind of feral, okay?
Little feral.
We're a little feral. So don't poke the bear too much, man. You're a neighbor, but man, just be careful.
Well, and I mean, it's a known fact that Canadians are super nice people. And I would never, like, ethically and with my character, boo somebody else's national anthem.
No, especially at a sporting event.
At a sporting event. Like yeah, bad form, Canada, bad form.
Well, they got taught a lesson.
Yeah.
Not only did the players get beat, like physically, but then we beat you at your own national sport. Like you guys created hockey. And so, the level of, F around and find out just went up. And y'all found out a lot.
You effed around and then you found out.
Yeah. That's the clearest example. And all of you Canadians who are now like saying, oh, we're preparing for war with America, like let that just be a precursor to what war with us would look like. Yeah. It would not be a fair fight. So just calm down.
I'm not going to go to war with you.
Yeah, calm down. Look, we're not trying to like take over Canada. All we're saying is let's strengthen the border a little bit, okay? And that's why Trump's putting tariffs on you. Is because he wants you to straighten out the border, stop letting fentanyl come in.
It's accountability.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking for is accountability.
That's it. That's it. Nobody's going to go to war with you. Nobody's going to make you the 51st state. He was joking. It was tongue in cheek. It was hyperbole. Like, come on, man. Don't let the media get you so spun up. Like, just do a little bit of research and then learn to emotionally regulate. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, right, Jess?
Yeah.
Is how to emotionally regulate. Because look, it's not just the Canadians. We have Americans doing this. You have people on the left, on the right. You have people doing this on all sides, all over the country. It is absolutely pandemonium with people's mental health because you just buy in to all the propaganda and you let the media control you because you're not learning to emotionally regulate. And what will happen to you when you don't emotionally regulate is what happened to Canada.
You'll get embarrassed.
You'll be very embarrassed. Somebody's going to humble you very quickly. So think about this.
Yeah, which leads us into a video we want to share with you guys.
Yes.
To introduce kind of some of the concepts we're going to talk about today on top of the story of the Canada-America hockey fight. So if you could share that video now with us, Casey.
Roll the tape.
I don't care what nobody says. This just took away the Equal Employment Act. I can't, like, you cannot make this up. I don't give a
You can make this up. In fact, what you're saying right now is made up.
You can call me a crying liberal. I don't give a You guys are disgusting. This country is disgusting.
Okay, I did not vote for Donald Trump, but I can't sit here and allow people to buy into propaganda and get emotionally upset over things that are not fully true. So we're going to talk about what is happening with Trump reversing Executive Order 11246. There are really big accounts tweeting that Donald Trump revoked the Equal Employment Opportunity Act of 1965, saying that the order prohibited discrimination in hiring and employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. People are saying, so you're telling me a job can now not hire me based on my race or religion? And the answer to that is no. Companies still cannot discriminate against you when hiring you because that is already codified into law. And the president doesn't have the power with an executive order to supersede congressional law. So discrimination based off of certain characteristics is still illegal. Trump did not make it legal again. He simply reversed EO 11246. So let's get into what exactly this is. Executive Order 11246 was an executive order that required affirmative action and prohibits federal contractors from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and sexual orientation. So the reason Trump reversed this old executive order is because it requires affirmative action. Trump has been very outspoken about being anti-DEI. So when this executive order gets reversed, it should not be surprising to anyone that he doesn't want to have quotas or to hire people based off of their skin color, their sexual orientation, or whatever it might be. It's also worth noting that this executive order only applies to federal contractors. So if you are working in the private sector and you are not working for the federal government or with the federal government, this quite literally has nothing to do with you. Now, the one caveat here, which people are rightfully upset about, is that in some states, you can still be discriminated against based off of your sexual orientation. So when the president puts an executive order like this in place that only applies to federal contractors, a lot of companies will not discriminate based off of sexual orientation because they need those government contracts to stay in business. So it's kind of like a trickle-down effect where the rest of the market follows. But in MAGA's eyes, affirmative action is more destructive than protecting gay people in a half-ass way. So yes, some people do have valid concerns when it comes to Trump reversing this executive order, but in no way, shape, or form is this action going to turn the US into a dystopia that openly discriminates against people like it was in the 50s. Now, don't confuse this video as being a pro-Trump video or a pro-Democrat video. I didn't make it for that reason. I'm not partisan. I made it so you can see what the truth is and then decide how you want to react. But one thing I will say, and I'll leave you with this, if liberals do not start looking into things before emotionally reacting, you are crying wolf and losing credibility with middle voters. People will stop listening to your valid criticisms of the president if your other ones weren't based in truth.
So you guys, right now, our country's more divided than ever. And a big part of that comes from how the media and social platforms shape our view of reality. They focus on the negatives and they leave out the full picture, which only deepens misunderstandings and drives us apart. When we're only given one side of the story, it's hard to see the common ground that we all share. As a veteran and a mental health counselor, I've seen firsthand how a skewed perspective can impact our well-being and relationships. I encourage you to question what you hear, dig a little deeper, and trust your own judgment. Your perspective is a powerful tool used to bridge gaps and build connections rather than isolating yourself from those who might just have a different view. And as we saw in that video, what she did was, as we've talked about before, is she really just dug into that emotional side of her brain and spewed a bunch of false narratives and false facts and ended up embarrassing herself, right? And so now when people watch that video, they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to believe anything she says. And that's what's happening right now is certain extremes on both sides get really emotionally invested in how they feel, and they don't take a step back to reflect and find out facts. They just spew from the mouth. And that's when things go extreme on either side and create disunity instead of unity. And I love how that, what do you call it when that guy that, where they do a video with somebody else, you probably know the word for it, like stitch what is it, Stitch coming in or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how he broke it down to me from an unbiased. He presented facts. He gave both sides reason to have certain feelings that they're feeling, validated them, but also pointed out how emotionally irregulated she was, that presented so many false narratives that continued to fuel more and more emotional false narratives. And we know that with social media, you get on these algorithms and that's all you get is those emotional.
They keep feeding you what you're watching.
Yeah.
And then you start to think that that's the whole world, when really it's just like 10 people out of a billion that have that opinion and viewpoint. But if that's the only 10 opinions you're seeing, you think that's the whole world. It's
Right.
like looking at the world through your keyhole of your house.
Yeah.
You get a very
and
narrow
those-
view.
And then unfortunately, those 10 people then spread to 20. And then those 20 spread to 60. And and so like, I'm just challenging people on all sides. Stop, take a breath, and investigate where your feelings are coming from, why you feel them, and investigate the truth behind them.
This might seem like something big, like worldly, like, oh, this doesn't really apply to me. Well, I'm going to break it down and it's going to apply directly to you right now. In the conversations that you're having with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your employees, these are the conversations that can spiral out of control because you're just regurgitating something that somebody sitting in their car talked about, and you're taking that as fact because it touched a feeling. And so then you're going to go and spread that information. Perfect example, actually. And this wasn't in my notes for the show, but you reminded me of it. I had an employee, somebody that I really like and respect, and they came up to me and said, Trump is doing this and taking women's rights away and this and this and this. I said, oh, well, where is that? Where's the source data for that? Because I haven't heard that at all. And she couldn't give me the source. She said, oh, let me call my friend. So she calls her friend as the source data. And so then I asked the friend, where are you getting this? Like, what is it? And just in the 30 seconds of speaking with their friend, it became very apparent that the friend didn't actually have source data either. And I was able to dismantle a lot of what she said just by asking investigative questions. And I said, if you have the source data, I would take a look at it because
Absolutely.
that sounds really troubling.
Yeah.
But if there's no source data, if this is just what other people are telling you, I'm not going to hold very much stock in that. And I'm not going to get emotionally charged over something that is just hearsay. This is why you don't allow hearsay into evidence in a trial.
Yes. And like throwing myself on the coals, I have been a victim of this. I have gone with a narrative that was in my algorithm on one of these social media posts a few years ago, actually, about some kind of law that was passed in California that was going to, these extreme right were throwing out these narratives of that California was going to allow murder after a baby is born to a certain extent. And without doing my due diligence and researching, I took it to my class, my master's cohort where we were learning these kinds of things, and I was put in my place, and they were able to give me facts to say, hey, none of us are for that. And I had this mindset of like, you're all for this, because the majority of my class were very left leaning, and I had assumed, and we all know what assumptions do.
Yeah, they make an ass out of you and me.
Yes. I fell victim to that. And the first thing that I would challenge you to do is be vulnerable and transparent and take accountability for yourself when you do it, which I
take accountability.
I take full accountability that I jumped on that bandwagon. I didn't do the proper research and fact finding, and I dug into the emotions of it because I'm very, very strongly opinionated about abortion because my mom was conceived by a rape, and she wouldn't be here today if abortion was legal back when that happened, right? So I have my own personal feelings about it, whatnot, and I allowed that emotional self to overtake the logical self, and I made a fool of myself.
Yeah, it's It can happen to all of us.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's not just the left, it's the right as well. We just see more of it on the left because they're on these social platforms making a big deal out of things that really aren't true and don't actually have any evidence of being true. And that's the part that I really try to get down to is when people tell me these things that just seem unbelievable, I'm always asking, like, where's the source document for that? Where are you getting this information? Oh, I watched this video. Okay, but that's somebody's opinion. Like, where's the source document? Where's the source material? That's what you've got to ask yourself. Anytime you're watching these influencers or somebody tells you something, you've got to ask yourself, where's this information actually coming from? And if they can't give you the source data, I just completely dismiss what they're saying. For me, I just jettison that whole thing. Like, look, man, I'd love to have this conversation with you, but I got to do it from an educated point of view. And I'm not educated on this subject because you can't give me the source data. So I don't really have an opinion at all that I can give you. And that really shuts it down because now I'm not telling them, no, you're stupid, you're wrong, even though sometimes I think that. I'm not telling them that. I mean, let's be real, right? I mean, I'm thinking that, like, you're an idiot. That's not right. But I'm not going to say that. That's not going to help the situation. I just say, hey, I deal with facts and I want to be educated on this. And if you can't give me the source data to where I can educate myself, then I can't really have a productive conversation. Yeah. And that just shuts it down. Right?
Yeah. And we don't want to, right? We know some of our viewers really like political talk, but a lot of you don't. And so we're gonna give you a lot more than just political talk. We're gonna give you
love political talk.
We all know that. We're gonna give you a lot of really great tools to implement in your own life to help you not fall victim to this what we call perception bias, or Q calls it negative bias.
Yeah, and so we just had to give you the setup, right? Of this is what happened to Canada. They let their emotions get the best of them and they got humbled very quickly, right? They got beat on two fronts, very embarrassing for them, I'm sure. And then we brought it home to, like, this is what happens to all of us if we're not careful. You're going to give us some tools. I think you called it cognitive restructuring when we were in our pre-show.
Yeah. So one of the best tools is called cognitive restructuring. It's all about catching those negative thoughts and giving them a reality check. Instead of automatically thinking something like, I can't do anything right, you pause and you ask yourself if that's really true. You might remind yourself, I face challenges every day, but I've succeeded in similar situations before. This little switch can change your whole outlook on a tough day. Another example of restructuring could be when you make a mistake and you feel like a complete failure. Rather than letting that one moment define you, try reframing it as, like, I made a mistake, but I'm learning and I'm growing from it. Even when setbacks feel overwhelming, this technique helps you build a more balanced, realistic view of yourself and your abilities. Now, this is really good for, holding ourselves accountable for some of those negative perspective biases. But I want to give you a really, really cool tool that if you practice every single day, if you practice it every single day for 30 days, you'll find on day 30, you're a lot better at opening that part of your brain to allow other perspectives in. And in the counseling world, and I don't know why it's called this, it's called the six-pack. So whether you think of it as you're building a six-pack, in your stomach, or you're drinking
a six-pack of beer.
I figured that's where your mind went. Or a six-pack of Pepsi, okay? Just it helps you remember, okay, I got to do this six-pack. Okay, so we're going to practice. We're going to practice this six-pack, and we're going to practice on something brand new. And we're going to practice on Sergeant Q.
I love it.
Love it. So the point of this six-pack, right, is we've talked about cognitive behavior therapy before, and that's our triangle, where a situation happens at the top, an automatic thought comes into play. That automatic thought, which is usually subconscious because we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, that then turns into an emotion or a feeling, and then that emotion or feeling turns into a behavior, which is an action or an inaction. And then that usually reinforces that automatic thought.
So let me change my automatic thoughts. Like, it's not, I don't want to help this person. It's, I don't want to waste my time.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay. So
waste my time.
What we're going to do with Q is we're going to take this triangle and we're going to dissect an automatic thought he has. So situation would be, hey, Sergeant Q, I want to be like you. I want to do what you do. like, can you help me? And then Sergeant Q tells him something to do, and he comes in to check in on him. He's like, yeah, man, I didn't have time for that. What is your automatic thought to that situation?
My automatic thought is, I don't want to waste my time with this guy.
Yeah.
Automatically.
Automatic thought, I don't want to waste my time with this guy. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this because we're going to do it right here. We are going to draw out 6 boxes, okay? And all we're doing here with no judgment, like no expectations, is just think of...
No judgment. You're not, no judging me.
I'm not judging you.
Not you, them.
Them. Oh, I judge you all the time.
No.
We're going to come up with 6 alternate thoughts, okay? So if you say you don't have time for this...
Yeah, I don't want to waste my time. Yeah.
I don't want to waste my time. And what is that automatic thought of why you don't want to waste your time?
Because so the explanation, if I pour into them but they don't do it, then I'm wasting my time. And you spend that time on somebody who does actually want to change, or spend that time doing something that I think is valuable.
Okay. Why do you think the person didn't put the time in?
Oh, why they didn't?
What's that automatic
They're lazy.
Thought? Okay.
They're undisciplined.
They're undisciplined.
They're lazy. They just expect...
Hold on.
Oh, I've got a bunch of them.
No. Okay. Your automatic thought is this person isn't putting in the time. They're undisciplined. They're lazy.
Yep.
Tell me what emotion follows.
Frustration.
Frustration, which would be under the catalyst of anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anger is an emotion we can't really do anything positive with. Okay. Just note that. Okay. So we're going to come up with 6 other thoughts that could be true, could be not true. Like, they could be so outlandish.
Sure. But what's the correlation? Another thought of what?
Another thought of they're undisciplined and lazy that leads to anger. Okay. So I'm going to help you through this. I don't want you to come up with all of them. I want you to help me come up with a few.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm going to, just for the purpose of showing this practice.
Quickly.
Okay.
Sure,
so maybe they weren't able to do that first set of exercises because they had a death in the family.
Okay.
Maybe they didn't do the first set of discipline because they didn't see the value in it. Maybe they didn't do the first set of disciplines you asked them to do because they have a brain injury and they need a little bit more of a step-by-step accountability type approach. What's another one you can think of?
Maybe they didn't do it because they actually don't value the information that I give them. Like, yeah. I'm not valuable.
It's good. Maybe
they don't want help. They just want somebody to do it for them. They want the easy button.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and just to show you how ridiculous this 6-pack can be, okay, I'm going to come up with 2 more ridiculous ones.
Okay.
Just for the fun of it. Maybe he had an alien invasion come into his house and kidnap his family for 30 days, and he just got free of it.
Fire in the sky.
Fire in the sky. You like that one.
Yeah.
Maybe he got a first job and was really excited about this first job and got really overwhelmed with needing to learn this first job and get really, really good at it. Okay. First job. Now, none of these could be true. Some of them could be true. And a lot of the times our first automatic thought is there for a reason, because Q has experienced, right? When we look at that cognitive triangle, that automatic thought stems from 87% of past experiences. So his automatic thought of they're undisciplined or they're lazy or they want the easy way out, those are probably his 2 most reasonable thoughts because it stems from 87% of his experiences with him. So it makes sense. the point of this is to take that automatic thought, and in our brain has, certain capacities that are just routine, and this is one of them, are automatic thoughts. So if we want to expand those automatic thoughts, this is one way to do it. And when we throw in the crazy alien one, we kind of laugh to ourselves a little bit, and that brings in a different dopamine hit. But then we want to break down what emotions these other ones bring to the table. So some of them bring anger, right? They're undisciplined, they're lazy, they just want what I have, and they don't want to put in the work. Anger, can't do much with that. And it could be true, absolutely. What if they had a death in the family? What emotion would that cause?
I know there's a right answer. A death in the family, I guess I would have compassion.
Okay, compassion. What if they don't value you as a person?
Frustration.
I think that would make you sad and depressed.
Well, maybe, but it made me frustrated because, like, why did you ask me then? Sure.
I think that frustration would be under they're undisciplined and lazy. But if you get rooted down to, they really don't think I'm valuable, I think if you're honest with yourself, it would lead to a little sadness and depression.
Okay.
Right. Can't do much with that either.
No.
Okay. What if you find out, like, eventually they have literally a mental illness, a brain development issue that they need a little bit more help, a little more customization? What emotion would that lead to?
In emotion, I think it would be, I guess, compassion again.
Maybe empathy?
Yeah, empathy.
Empathy. First job.
Yeah.
You got a first job, right? One of your emotions might be like, so what? You still got to make time for it, right?
Right.
But if it's a 17-year-old kid who's living in a van most of his life, and he's super excited to get his first job, get a car, be independent, and strive for excellence, and he still sees what an awesome guy you are, and he still wants to put that effort in. He just needs a little bit more time to adjust to this new job and then be able to start implementing these things. What would that emotion lead to?
So if they had their first job, I would be thinking that I would want to be helpful to them, and I would want to encourage them.
Encourage, maybe have a little bit of patience for them.
Patience, yeah, that's a good one.
And maybe adjust the hardcore curriculum for them to slowly build up some of those things, right?
Okay.
The point is, each one of these different thoughts brings about a different emotion, and then that brings about a different behavior. And I'm not trying to convince you, Q, to do this. I say, if people don't give, you don't have time to work with people who aren't going to put in the effort, I don't either, right? So we share in that. This practice is just to show you that when we open up other options for our thinking, it can open up other emotions that can lead to a different behavior.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Jess? I did this, not this exercise, but I did this in my brain because so many people come to me and they want my help, but they don't actually want to implement anything that I tell them.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating. It would burn me out. That's why I created the Day One Challenge. Because now if people want my help, that's the first thing I tell them, like, go do the Day One Challenge.
Yeah.
When you complete that, then I'll help you, because then you've developed the discipline that it takes to do the things that I've done. And if people aren't willing to do that, then I really don't have time for them. But I built a whole system that's completely automated, that keeps them accountable, that tracks their progress, that encourages them along the way. It's all automated.
Yeah.
So it's everything from my brain. I put it into this system that they can now use, and they can find it at dayonechallenge.com.
Yeah, which
can do it.
Changed my life and my husband's life for the better. So I can't recommend it enough. What I want to challenge our listeners to is practice this 6-pack on little things you think about, right? Just little tiny things. Just get in the habit of practicing it, because if you practice something like this every day for 6 months, you're going to wake up one day and be like, wow, I can now do this practice with negative emotions and start reframing a potential outcome. And the next thing you know, you're not as depressed or sad or frustrated or angry as you used to be.
And it tells us in the Bible that we're to take every thought captive. And that's exactly what we're doing right here. You're taking it captive and
Yes.
you're reframing it. So you change your behavior.
Yes. And my verse for today comes from Romans 12:2, is do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. What?
Oh, Canada. A fool's lips bring him strife, and his words deserve a beating.
Oh my God. Of course it was. Perfect. We are here to educate you, empower you, and encourage you to go out on your own journey and share this with your friends so you can be better than you were yesterday.
For the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sergeant Q,
I'm Doc Jess.
and we're out.